Welcome to Psychic Bent. My name is Carrie.
And I'm Kim. We are two sisters wanting to help other psychics learn and grow in their abilities and to help educate about spirits, angels, and everything psychic. So welcome back to Psychic Bent, everyone. We hope you have enjoyed the Psychic Toolbox series that we've been working on. And today I think we're going to be covering the psychic etiquette, because once you learn your tools and get them out of the toolbox and start working with people and your toolbox, there's just things that you should and should not do or say and should not say when you are doing a reading for somebody else. So, Carrie, why don't you go ahead and start us on that? I hope I gave that description made sense, or what it is we're wanting to cover, because I personally think it's very important to make certain that we are being respectful for the people that we are giving readings to. And I think everybody's wanting to do that part of it, giving readings.
Yes. And it's very important to have a code of ethics. When you're starting this journey and you're learning how to do psychic readings, and there's a lot of self-discovery going on, but it's crucial that you navigate the ethereal landscape in a way that you encompass ethics and understand what proper etiquette is. Just because you get information doesn't necessarily mean that information should be shared.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not doing a disservice, but as you're developing, you're getting a lot of things, and you want to make sure that whether you're doing card readings or any kind of psychic reading, that you're working from an aspect of love.
Right.
So all the information that you're going to give is going to have to deal with a loving message. And so that can kind of maybe help you siphon out. The example I think I might use is, last episode I talked about when I ran into my work friend and I had all that energy over me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and I didn't understand what that energy meant, but what would it have done for me to share that with him?
True. What would that have? Yeah.
Something, if things are set in motion by the life plan, you can't just tell everything you're going to hit on. You need to kind of take a gander at it and say, is this working from an area of love? Is this going to be hurtful?
Right.
No psychic messages should ever be hurtful. And a lot of your fake psychics work from that angle. Someone cast a spell on you. You need to pay me this much money and I can break the spell. Or, oh my gosh, I just got this really bad thing about you. You need to reach out to me. They use that fear aspect.
Right.
They're shocking you. It's like a shock and awe.
Right.
They've Googled you. They've got all the information they could find on the internet. Now they're going to do this psychic reading.
Mm-hmm.
That's fake.
Right.
So you need to make sure that you're working from a place of love to basically, first of all, you're showing that you are actually a psychic. You're not trying to scare someone. So the ethics here is very important, that you work with a commitment to integrity with every reading you do. Even if you don't plan on doing readings, but you get hits and you might be practicing, work from a point of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
As a psychic, you're entrusted with sensitive information.
Yeah.
And it deserves the utmost respect and confidentiality. You've heard me give stories of readings, but then I always don't tell you everything. The personal stuff I withhold, because that would be unethical for me to talk about that.
Right.
That was a reading between spirit and that person.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to then go tell everybody, then that's breaking an ethical code. That's where your ego's acting out.
Right.
Oh gosh, it's one thing to say I did a psychic reading and I got a hit and blah, 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 and that's how it started. But once you get into the details of what this person really needs,
mm-hmm.
that's no one else's business.
Right.
So you do have a sense of responsibility. You need to recognize the impact of their insights for the person who's seeking the message.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You need to understand the nature of the reading, its potential outcomes, and the boundaries that need to be respected.
Okay, so what do you mean by that?
Well, you need to have, just because you're given information, is this going to help this person with the potential outcome that they want?
Okay, so you are asking the person beforehand what is the outcome that they're expecting, or or just what are
Wait,
you wanting to know today? What kind of message are you wanting,
usually if someone is, well, usually if you've ever had a psychic reading that you paid money for, Kim, you might want to do that. But the psychic normally asks, what are you wanting today? What are you wanting to accomplish today? What brings you here? Why do you want this reading?
Okay.
So they know, so then you know where you need to be, what lane you need to stay in. So like, let's say you're talking to a psychic medium who talks to those that have transitioned. So if you want to, I need to know if someone here who has transitioned has a message for me. Then they know that's what you're here for.
Okay.
I want to know, can you tell me anything? Are you getting anything about my love life? Okay. So if it's about the love life, if someone pops in, okay, well, we're not doing that right now. You're going to have to step back because we're doing this. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And plus you get information that pops in that you're like, I don't know if that's really to their best interest to tell them that.
Okay.
Well, I think that what you were asking would have made more sense if you've had a psychic reading, and what I was saying.
Uh-huh. So you are giving us this as if you are giving someone a psychic reading, not necessarily as if you're there and okay, so whenever you watch the shows on TV and stuff like that, they go up to random people and say, "Oh my gosh, I got this hit," just like your gal at the deli. Now, you didn't know you were
Okay,
going
well,
to be giving her a reading.
Those are two separate things. Those are two separate things. Do not confuse those. First of all, TV is fake. A lot of that stuff. The psychics aren't fake, but they're doing things geared towards drama for ratings.
I understand that. I'm just saying, like.
So that's not what I do. That's not what I did at the deli. So let's back up to etiquette. Let's start over. Okay.
Okay.
When you get a hit, when you get a psychic hit, doesn't mean you need to share it. Now, and when I give stories, I don't give the whole elaborate this, and this because we have an hour, right?
Okay.
I just don't walk up to random people and start telling them things because that's not what they wanted. Now, I was getting a download on the girl at the deli, and I started the conversation only by commenting on her necklace.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's the one who started talking about different things and such, and then led into her reading.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it did, right.
So I didn't shock and awe her. Yeah, I didn't just walk up to her like they do on, what was that, the Long Island Medium?
No, I didn't mean that's what you did. I'm saying she was with strangers, not necessarily you've scheduled a reading with somebody or you've arranged to have a reading with somebody.
Well, because I'm not a practicing psychic medium who does readings for money. So the only way I do readings is when they do happen to, when you're having a conversation with someone and when they are open for a reading or a message. But I always ask them, are you okay if I tell you something, what do you want? But I've never had anybody tell me no because I've made sure we've had this conversation and I'm just talking to them and I'm letting them talk to me. And it's just kind of, they're feeling the connection. But no, you never just walk up. If you walk up to someone randomly and you just tell them something, that is very poor etiquette. Because A, what if they don't believe in psychics?
Okay, that's right.
B, what if they're not ready for that message?
True.
What if the message is really from ego? I mean, what damage can you do to someone who isn't actively seeking a message?
Okay, that all makes sense. So when do you determine that that's something you have to have a conversation with somebody, or, how do you determine that?
I'm going to turn the table on you for a minute. Have you ever got a psychic hit where you knew you were getting a psychic hit and you didn't say anything, or you did say something to someone?
Well, it depends on the situation,
Exactly.
but,
It does, exactly.
I felt like I got the psychic hit for that one thing, but,
Well, you need to give the listeners more than just that one thing.
well, like I described last week, on last week's episode, where, I knew not to trust this person, and then, I think that's a psychic hit.
I think it was too, but the people you were giving the information to weren't ready for it, were they?
Well, apparently not. 'Cause they didn't listen.
So that's yeah, and you weren't walking up to a random stranger either. This was someone close to you that you were trying to, give your psychic warning to.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't ready to hear it.
Right.
They didn't want to hear it because this particular person likes to see the good in everybody.
Right.
Which is a very nice quality to have. But see, that's where just walking up to someone, could you imagine what it would be if someone you didn't know when you did that?
Well, I wouldn't.
I'd be like, well, no, because you're still have a foot in the closet. But if, you get a psychic hit, and it's someone who you don't know well, or you do know, you got to weigh it out. Is this something that I'm really supposed to, and I ask Spirit, I'm like, okay, I know I got the information. Am I supposed to share it? And what's funny is usually the person will say something in response to the question I ask Spirit. And that's how the conversation evolves into, here's your message. This is what, but usually they'll ask me before I get to that stage, are you a psychic?
Ah, okay.
Because I do throw a few little bitty hits out. Just a little,
Right.
just nothing. I don't give them anything that's going to scare them, going to freak them out, hopefully, before they ask for a reading. Or are you psychic? Well, yes, I'm psychic. Well, what do you get off me? Is usually what I get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what are you getting? Not that's someone who wants to know what I'm getting.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to walk up to someone and say, well, looks like your marriage is going to fall apart.
Well, yeah.
Well, what good is that's not working from an area of love. That's freaking someone out.
Right.
So with etiquette, you need to have common sense.
Makes sense. Definitely.
Would you want someone to walk up to you and say this to you? And if you're so it's basically not just walking up to random people. And I guess maybe it's coming across that way. That's what I'm doing, but that's not what I'm doing. I get hits. I try to be shut down or have my abilities tuned down in any public place.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
So my philosophy is if I'm getting a hit when I've got my abilities tuned down, then Spirit stepped up.
Okay. That makes sense.
I don't always deliver a message because, I'm not just going to walk up to somebody random and start a conversation, like the person at the deli. I was there for fried chicken.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the things were set into place. That person happened to be there when I needed chicken. I can see when you've got people with you sometimes, not all the times. And I've had it where, I can see someone standing over the right shoulder and I could see they're a matronly person, so possibly grandmother. But I don't just say, hey, by the way, do you know you got somebody with you? That would be kind of invading their privacy.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. This has not happened to me.
Well, because
what you're describing.
Because you're not open.
So
yeah.
That's why I'm asking. Yeah. And I have such, well, how does that work? Because that has never happened to me.
Well, you're not open to it to happen to you yet. And
you know what? It's because I'm not
with
open.
Your abilities, you may have, like, it's just like our sister Julie, her abilities are different than mine and her abilities are different than yours.
Mm-hmm.
So how this plays out for me may not play out for you. But, we have established you're left-brained. And so you probably get hits that you're not aware of. Or you shook them off. And that happens to a lot of people. Not just you.
Well, that's true. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, as you're developing, I mean, because the whole point of this podcast is learning how to develop your psychic abilities and to let go of that fear factor. And when you start getting these psychic hits, how do I handle them? What do I do with it?
Right.
Do I get psychic hits on every single person I talk to? No. So people that are, not tuned in, I don't get anything on.
Okay.
We had a person at work pass away. Had worked there for over 20 years. And, I was talking to the person who shared her office with her. And she was struggling because they've shared an office for over 20 years.
Right.
Well, the deceased person was there. And it was just kind of like, okay. And she's being mischievous. Okay. But I didn't say too much. And the person was telling me how they were feeling and how hard it was. And I just let them go with it. And then she said to me, well, I heard you're a psychic. Okay, well, who brings that up in a conversation unless you want
Right.
information, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Why would she?
Yep.
Yeah, I said, oh, you heard that? Who told you? And she told me. I said, oh, okay, well, yes, I'm a psychic. And so she was having comfort in talking to me because I was psychic. And she was telling me everything. And then, and
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I told her, I said, well, she's here with you. She goes, I know, I feel her all the time. I said, yeah, but she's being a little mischievous at the moment. And she laughed. And she goes, yeah, that would be her. So we had this conversation that, made her feel better. But she brought up the subject to me.
Right.
So she brought it up. So she was kind of wanting some comfort in knowing what was going on the other side with her friend.
Right.
So that's how a lot of these things happen for me, because I don't have I don't have my little name up on a door somewhere and doing that psychic way. Like I said before, maybe down the road that's my path, but right now that's not my path. I reach more people doing my craft shows. They seek me out. But again,
Right.
The time at the craft show in November last year, where the woman I was talking to, she knew I was psychic. She could tell.
Yeah.
And I was in the Bible Belt, so I didn't have any woo-woo out. There was no woo-woo,
Right.
So, but I knew that her husband was not open to anything. And he was not going to accept anything. So for me, I didn't even try. And she asked me, what do you get off him? And I'm just nothing. Because anything I'd gotten off of him would have been a violation of his privacy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
I could read off him. He was he closed like a clam. Boom. He wasn't open to it. So poor etiquette would for me to try to read him.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be wrong. So just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
And any message I had gotten off of him, I would not have shared with her, because that would have been for him, not for her.
Right.
So it's one of, like if I get a hit off of you on something, I'm not going to go and tell my cousin, well, I got this off of Kim. Could you believe it? Poor etiquette.
Yep. Totally makes sense.
Yeah, and it's one thing to kind of share readings to help people build their confidence, but I never tell you everything, because it's none of your business.
Right.
And so half the stuff I don't remember after I tell them.
And that makes sense.
But it's what they needed to hear and what they needed at that moment.
Mm-hmm. So we don't want to say anything negative.
Correct.
Or create fear.
Right.
And we don't want to be fatalistic, like things are going to come to an end, and stuff like that.
Right.
And we want to be respectful of those, whether or not they want to be given a message or not. Right?
Right. I mean, it comes down to, if you're working from a point of compassion and love, it's common sense.
Mm-hmm.
Would I want a random person to come up and say this to me? No. I mean, on like the Long Island medium is the one that she just walk up to random, and there's other ones that do it too. But that's all scripted. the reading perhaps is not scripted, but, you've got, even with the shows that we've talked about, the paranormal shows, there has to be an element of drama or people won't listen or watch.
Right. And I only use that as an example because a lot of people watch that show and that's how they perceive as what a psychic does. And it's not what normally how a psychic operates. Because it is scripted. That was the only reason why I brought that up, is because people watch that show and that's what they expect to see or how it works, but that's not.
Right.
It's kind of like it's kind of like the way they have it scripted is against the ethics that you should actually do or follow.
Right. I would listen to a podcast that had of course, a psychic medium. It was two people doing the podcast, and she had actually been on a very hokey, very dramatic ghost hunting show, and she swore she would never go on it again because how they edited the recordings to make it more dramatic than what she was saying.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that's very common just to get the
right
views and such.
Yeah, so she went on there to be a good psychic and to do her job and to try to help, but it kind of backfired on her and she was very upset, because it made her be more not what she was.
Yeah.
But that's just what they wanted to do for the whole episode.
Right.
I think you need to practice on doing readings because I think this would make more sense.
No, it's making sense. Was trying to say that's what people usually see is what they see on TV, and that's not how it is,
Mm-hmm. And, I come in contact with a lot more people throughout the day than you do.
Yes.
So that's why I think these situations happen to me more than you. Because when you go out, you're hiding in the depends aisle and you don't want to talk to anybody and give that reading. That's not your comfort zone.
Well, I am doing better about not hanging out in the depends aisle, but I think I do have my bubble up and I'm not letting it in.
So you're at a stalemate in your development.
At least as far as going to the grocery store.
So you can order chicken at the deli counter and not have to have a conversation.
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Well, I had a situation while I was at work at the employee dining room. Guy walked up and he was getting soup, and I got a hit. Didn't know him from Adam, and I just kept on walking because it's like I don't know you, and I'm like nope, okay, let me get my food and get on.
Well, and that I could say that probably happens to me too, but I just ignore it because it's like that's not my circus.
But the times that I didn't ignore it and that conversations happened, it usually dealt with a loved one who had transitioned.
Right.
And the feeling that I had being able to give them a message and to help them, it made me feel good. Not cocky, it just made me feel good. I would say, and hopefully I was able to help them.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to make it appear as though I'm not trying to do any of this or anything like that or ignoring what I'm doing. It's just when I'm grocery shopping, I need to get in and out because I hate grocery shopping. But there have been times whenever I have given a message to somebody that needed to take care of themselves. Like I believe I told the story of the lady when I was at the hospital getting ready to leave, and her mom had come in with the heart issue or whatever it is that she had, and I was told that the lady that I was talking to needed to go home and just get some rest for the day, and that's what we had a conversation about, and I told her that that's what she needed to do. So I mean, I know I have had instances of where I was giving a message to somebody that needed to hear something, but not at the grocery store. No. It's just because
But
I
how
hate
did you
it.
feel after? How did you feel after you gave the message?
Well, I felt good about it. I felt like, yep, that's what she needed to hear, and I need to get home and get rid of this pain. So, because I was feeling pain for myself, not
Well, the fact that you were feeling pain, I'm
no,
sorry for,
that,
but that might made you
yeah.
more open to getting your psychic hit because you weren't shut off.
Right, I wasn't shut off for that
Yeah,
one. So, I mean,
and
I
it's
have had readings. So, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I've got that all shut down. I do shut it down at the grocery store. So, and
well,
that's
it's not healthy to have it shut down all the time. It will cause health issues.
right. Yeah. Well, these were some things that I found during the research. There were some tips that various psychic mediums use whenever they are giving readings, and things that they try to
Hmm.
keep in mind to make it a healthy and productive type of reading.
Right. And I wasn't trying to discredit you but you were the way you were asking your questions, it was coming across as to me, and might have been picking it up way off, that you weren't understanding the psychic reading portion.
That I was not understanding the psychic reading portion.
Yeah. And I, like I said, I could totally. That's why I kind of recommended you get one. Get a reading, because it was kind of like I felt like you were questioning it. That's why I asked you. Well, haven't you gotten hits? That's why I was asking you that. But I think you were just trying to pull out more nuggets, more information.
Yes, because a lot of, people that we are doing the podcast for are trying to learn their psychic abilities and how to maybe not go into doing psychic readings, but they will encounter psychic readings.
Yes, and I was kind of hoping that at this stage they're already to that point. If they've been following the progression and doing the work, they should be kind of at that point right now.
Maybe. Look at how long I've been doing the work.
Yes, but you're
or
choosing
trying,
not
but
to do. You're choosing not to do all the work.
right, and there may be others that are doing that as well. So they may not have had a psychic reading before. Is where am
And you
going.
don't have to have.
You know what I'm saying?
And you don't have to have a psychic reading to be able to do a psychic hit. But if you're having this many questions about it, then maybe you need to have a psychic reading just to put to rest whatever lingering fear is in the back of your head. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even if you're not wanting to do psychic readings, that's fine. I mean, I don't want to do psychic readings. Do I end up doing psychic readings? Yes. But I'm not charging people for them. It's not a formal reading. It's not a very long reading. I kind of look at it where Spirit's putting me in a particular situation for a particular reason.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I don't say all the hits I get, because first of all, you got free will. So I might be seeing something in your relationship down the road, but your free will, you may subliminally pick up on what's going on the relationship and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I
Right.
tell you, I see this, this, and this, well, then how are you going to react?
Right.
Because I have just caught you off guard. I'm giving you information that's blowing your mind. You don't want to believe me. You can automatically think I'm some sort of charlatan. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it comes and it's really not my business to say if I pick that up or not.
Right.
Just because you get it doesn't mean you use it.
That's true. It's true for anything.
Yes. You could almost use it as gossip. If someone tells you that so-and-so told them that this happened, okay, first of all, now it's all lies because you don't really know what the truth is. And maybe that's a bad analogy, but for me to get a hit on you and I'm not getting hit on you, I'm just using that as an example, and it's something negative, and if I tell you the negative, I feel like I'm gossiping.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm giving you the negative of something I'm picking up, and that may or may not happen. Because we talked about before, your hits are not 100% right all the time.
Right.
So
Right.
what if this negative hit I'm getting, I'm wrong?
That makes sense.
Or this negative hit's going to be traumatic to you.
Right.
That's not coming from an area of love. That's giving information that isn't necessarily needed.
Right. So that brings one of the tips to being to keep what works.
Okay.
What works for you as far as delivering messages or receiving messages from spirit for the reading when you get your hits. You keep what works for you as far as giving them the message and how you receive the
What do you mean?
message.
What do you mean you keep what works?
You figure out the best method that works for you to receive messages from spirit and use those techniques so that whenever time comes for you to give a message to somebody, you're in that mindset.
Okay.
It shouldn't feel like a punishment. You shouldn't feel like you are working, that it's a punishment for you to be receiving this message. Find out what works best for you in trying to when you receive your messages, so that you're not in a negative mindset yourself. You're not feeling like, oh gosh, this is a chore. Or,
Well, I've had a few times where it's like, oh, we're gonna do this now. Okay, it's like, okay, because it's persistent. You're giving information that spirit's giving to you that the particular person in front of you needs to hear, and spirit will give you loving stuff to say,
okay,
and it may not make sense.
right. Another tip that you can do is, when in doubt, throw it out. If
I
it
like
is
that one.
something that, oh, okay.
What do you mean? Oh, okay.
You just surprised me with that response. When you receive a message and you're not really certain that this is something that is for them, or you're not sure it's their message, or you're receiving a message for you or whatever during this, when in doubt, just like I said, throw it out. If it's something that you can't put it in there, you're not sure that that's for them, because you receive messages all the time and it could be a message for you, not them, just throw it out.
I think that's a really good rule of thumb. When in doubt, throw it out. I mean, it comes back to the thing is, if it's not it's the same thing as what I was saying as picking up something, but it's not something I'm going to share because it's not going to serve this person's higher self or their better good. Why would I share that when it could be hurtful? So that could
Right.
be an excellent just key phrase. When in doubt, throw it out. If you're not sure about the information you're getting, well, throw it out.
Right. Right. Another thing that some of the psychics had mentioned was something about, don't be too literal.
Don't try to make sense of what you're getting told.
Right.
Don't try to make sense of what you're getting told. It may not make sense to you, but it makes sense to them.
Correct, because it could be that you're being told something, and to you, it's like, don't eat the cherry pie, and you say that to them, and you're thinking, oh, they shouldn't eat the cherry pie, but to them it could be mean something totally different. That's what Grandma always used to say about something else. I mean, cherry pie could mean something different to them. I know that's an outlandish example, but I'm just trying to. It may mean something different to them than what you would take it as. Is that how you're also interpreting it?
Yes. Basically it's what your message is. Just because it doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean it won't make sense to them.
Right.
It could be a joke. When the very first time I had a psychic reading with my psychic medium Andrea, she says, you're not making the secret recipe right.
Mm-hmm.
And she had been talking to Grandma. Well, we had Grandma used to bring potato salad to all functions in a pretty bowl with cut up eggs and paprika on the top. And, one day we found the container. We thought she was making it homemade for years. And when we found the container from the grocery store, she was just, so that was the joke. Anytime we saw, someone brought packaged potato salad to an event, oh, Grandma's secret recipe. But it wasn't, because it wasn't in a pretty glass bowl. It didn't have the hard-boiled eggs on top of it sliced up nicely, and it didn't have the paprika. So we were doing the recipe wrong.
Right.
Now, but see, that made no sense to Andrea.
Right.
But that was,
exactly.
I mean, that was the joke for decades. And so, that's what Grandma told her, you're not doing the recipe right. Well, that's the only recipe that everyone knew about was Grandma's secret recipe for potato salad,
Yeah.
which came
Yeah.
from the local grocery store. So
Exactly.
it wasn't homemade like we all
Right.
thought.
Like we all thought. Exactly.
But right. So if she had tried to put a spin on the recipe, then it might have got totally missed. But
Right.
at that point, I knew we had Grandma. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was something that Grandma was saying to ensure that I knew who she was talking to.
Exactly.
But the recipe, and when Andrea said, she goes, she's talking about some kind of recipe, not right? Because you could tell she didn't know what it was. She's like, I don't know. That's what she's saying,
Yeah.
And that's how she delivered it. This is what I'm being told. I don't know what it means. Instead of trying to come across and make sense of what she was being told, because if she had done that, it probably would have just bounced off me and kept on going.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing along those lines is that you never make assumptions whenever you're doing a reading. You never assume that that's what the message is about. You just don't
Right,
make the
right.
assumptions. And not to try to analyze the information, because that's not what you're there for. You're just there to deliver the message, not try to analyze it for them. You just give it to them
Right.
and
It's not
let
your
them go
yeah.
from.
It's not your information
Yeah.
to decipher.
Right.
Remember what information being given may not be relevant to today anyway.
Well, that's
It may
true.
be
Right.
relevant a couple days from now.
Yep. And another thing is to not try to dictate a person's destiny. That could only, they have free will, and you don't want to try to tell them this is where you need to go. This is what you need to do, because that's not what you're there for. You're just giving them information and they can use it however they interpret it themselves.
Right. I mean, if they're supposed to go do something, everything's going to line up to push them in that direction. But
Right.
if you're telling them what they need to go do and do and do, you're not really acting from love and giving a message from love. You're and I don't know about you, but I don't like to be told. I don't like to be told what to do. Even if I'm there for a
Well,
reading,
yeah.
what do you mean I can't go do this? I've been planning this for a while, and then I'm going to be upset because that's what I really wanted to do. Or what I'm saying, I just don't think that giving too much information is a good idea.
Yes, agreed. And then, of course, this is a no-brainer one, but everyone has their own moral compass, and you do not want to make moral judgments on people with their readings and what they're getting and how they live their lifestyle and whatnot. So don't step on people's toes that way. Don't just give them messages that apply to them. Don't make any moral compass judgments, because you could come across someone who has made some very different life choices than you have. And when you're being judgmental, I
And
honestly
that's
think
their
that you're not
path.
getting the best reading for them as well. It's their path, and if you're being judgmental, you're putting that ego in there then, and then your messages aren't going to be what they need to
Exactly.
hear.
Yeah, if you're being judgmental, then you shouldn't be giving readings at that particular time anyway, because you've let ego in and spirits quit talking.
Exactly. Exactly. Of course, we've already talked about the negative. Don't say anything negative or create fear. And you've given us example. I can't remember which episode it was, but it was where the person that was told a very negative thing about, well, that they were going to die in a couple of years or something like that. And that's not something that you want to give. That's not where you're talking about with the love. Those are things that you want to stay away from giving people, because I don't know that you would really know that.
I agree. I don't think you really would know that. Yeah, like when I got the message for cancer and hospice,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go to mom and tell her that message. Why would I?
Right.
The message
Yeah.
pertained to her because the message was to
Mm-hmm.
prepare me.
Right.
So it had no bearing on, and I shared it with you, but I didn't go tell the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
family because
Right.
Things had to play out the way they needed to play out.
Right.
And people had to come to terms with this journey that she was doing, that she was making. And me telling people would have made people upset.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it would have caused more, I think, more harm down the road during that period than it would have at the time.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know, but that was an example, I think, of just because you get the information, you don't need to share it.
Right. Exactly. So you also want to encourage the people, if you do have a message for them that is, it could be negative or depressing or whatever, you do want to encourage them by putting some positive energy and encourage them to like follow their dreams and put the positive spin onto what message they could be receiving that might be of a negative tone. You don't want to give them a fatalistic, oh my gosh, your career
I
is going
wouldn't
to
give
be
a
over
negative
with,
message at all.
and
I wouldn't do it at all. I wouldn't give it at all. I wouldn't put a spin on it at all. I wouldn't say anything. If it was negative came through, I wouldn't say anything.
oh, okay.
Mm-mm. I mean, that's me. I mean, because again, that's not, I mean, if I'm getting something negative, I'm not 100% sure I'm accurate.
Right. Okay.
So, I mean, I know you on this article that you had researched, that was one of the things that some psychics do, and that's great. Some psychics do that. That's fine. That's just not me.
Okay.
Because I don't, what if I'm wrong? That's where that fear thing popped in. What if I'm wrong?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, if it's negative, I don't say anything. Now, other people, you may want to be, gang, you may want to put that spin on there. That's fine. I just don't like to say anything negative.
All right. So that covers
Sorry.
about what I had as far as some of the things that I saw as far as some do's and don'ts or tips to help with a reading. There you go. So what else did you have?
Well, that's pretty much what I had for psychic etiquette.
All right. Okay. So I guess that's it. We'll see you next time on Psychic Bent. Bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye.
May your light shine bright.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, Psychic Bent. If you enjoyed Psychic Bent, please like, follow, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We can be reached on Facebook at Psychic Bent Podcast. Our email address is psychicbent1@gmail.com. May your light shine bright.